Such power, Israel had such power, and rightfully, over Congress.
I was called a traitor by a man that I fought for 6 years for. And I gave him my loyalty for free.
See what happened.
Her life could be at danger because of the rhetoric.
Her life is in danger? Who's that?
Marjorie Taylor Greene, she says.
Marjorie Traitor Greene. I don't think her life is in danger. Frankly, I don't think anybody cares about her. Okay, what about you?
What's going on, everybody? Today, we're going to discuss the question, is it Marjorie Traitor Greene or Traitor Trump? Who's a bigger traitor? As you can see, I got special guest Owen Schroyer here. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, boy, that's a loaded one, huh?
It is loaded. And also, I don't like to make accusations, but I do see you have a golden microphone. Some are saying that Trump gave it to you from his golden age, golden ballroom. And I just need to throw it out there.
Well, information like that, unfortunately, is still classified. But you may get it with the Epstein files. So in other words, you'll never know.
Okay, because you're sending mixed signals. You got the raw milk, which seems like you're part of the Thomas Massey industrial complex, and then you got the golden microphone. So I feel like
we like to keep them guessing, keep them off balance.
Yeah. So I guess I haven't talked about this, and I wanted to save it for with you because over the last couple of months, I've obviously enjoyed a lot of what Marjorie is saying, as far as like her seeming to not be, one of the few people controlled by AIPAC, and also her challenging our foreign policy. She's made a lot of sense on H-1B visas. I think she's talked about healthcare, and she's making an effort to be more likable to the left and also more likable to the dissident right. And, I knew it was only a matter of time until her and Trump beefed a little bit. So I guess what's your read on it? But I don't want to say anything and throw you in a direction.
Well, I would say this is going to benefit Marjorie Taylor Greene politically, and I'm wondering. It's hard to get a read on Trump too, and I kind of joke about keeping people off balance. I think that Trump does that strategically. I think Trump wants people to not know what he's really thinking or feeling about things, and so you kind of have to have that context when you're trying to analyze the things Trump is doing and saying. But I look at Marjorie Taylor Greene now as she's going to fill that void that Trump is going to leave behind. I think that she is kind of, as you said, representing what you might call the dissident right, the anti-establishment right. I like to call it the new generational right. This is probably where I land on the aisle. I might be more center right on some issues, maybe more far right on some issues. But I think that at the core of what people like me want is we want massive reform. We want massive reform. We think our government is entirely corrupted. We think our foreign policy is entirely corrupted. The policies really that we've seen our whole lives feel like they've been utter failures. And so Trump was supposed to be the guy that was going to get in there and drain the swamp and make the deep state arrests. And we haven't gotten that. I don't know if we will. Right now, I would probably say that we won't. I suppose he's still got 3 quarters left in this administration, but now it's like Marjorie Taylor Greene can kind of fill that void. Marjorie Taylor Greene can kind of play that role of speaking to the disenfranchised right, speaking to the anti-establishment right, which I think is, I think it's a lot bigger than what Washington D.C. thinks. I don't think whoever is communicating with Trump or advising Trump is not giving him good information. Marjorie Taylor Greene is still very popular. She's going to win her race easily, just like Thomas Massey will, no matter how much money Marion Adelson decides to spend, no matter how many millions she injects into those races, Massey and Greene will still win. So part of me wonders if Trump isn't doing it intentionally, and maybe that's me overthinking it. It's just like, I don't know how else to make sense of it. Why would he go against Marjorie Taylor Greene, who right now mostly represents what Trump ran on in 2015 and 2016. She's basically Trump from 2015, 2016. So you just have to ask, okay, did Trump decide to change? Did politics change Trump? Or is he intentionally letting Marjorie Taylor Greene move into this void strategically when he leaves, so that there is somebody that can kind of inherit that leadership role of the dissident right?
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing because I understand that Trump is the leader of the Republican Party. So if he was being a big tent for everybody, he was like, listen, I'll let in the Levins, the Grahams, the Marjories, the Rand Pauls. Like, I'm your daddy, I'm the leader, and you all play a role. But he's not doing that. He's siding way more with the Mark Levins, the Lindsey Grahams, the Ben Shapiros, the Randy Fines, and then he's trying to kick Rand Paul, Thomas Massey, and Marjorie to the curb. So like you said, I do think it's a big miscalculation from him because a lot of these older types that are like super pro Israel, they always just say, "Oh, my comment section is filled with bots. It's just bots." And I've talked to a lot of people. I try to talk to whoever I can and just hear what they're saying before I even say what I think. And I've heard from a lot of people. They're like, "Dude, the kids at the coffee shop are watching Nick Fuentes, this, that." Like, so I feel like there's a bigger movement, not just of Nick, but he's one that I know that they like really don't want people to listen to. And I think there are a lot of people that are liking what Marjorie's saying, liking what Massey's saying, liking what Tucker Carlson's saying as they try to throw him out of the party and scorn him, and others. So I guess it's just like, is Trump like super selling out to the fact where it's not a big tent for everybody anymore? It's basically just like a neocon circle jerk, and anybody who challenges him or his donors or his big beautiful bills or like now they're the bad guy. That's what it seems like to me, where Trump is losing me a lot for sure.
Well, I think it's a perfectly fair and reasonable observation that you're making. And all of the circumstantial evidence is what leads you to that conclusion. And so I think that, for me, I find it odd when people try to reject reality, which, we kind of used to point at the left and say that, hey, this is the party, this is the political side of the aisle that's rejecting reality. It seems there's a lot of that happening on the right now. It seems that the right wing is kind of wanting to reject reality and reject what is inevitable. And that is that even the right now is against the foreign policy failures. Even young right wingers do not like the foreign policy. Israel tends to be the center of attention, and I think that that's fair. But it's not just Israel. We don't like what's going on in Ukraine. Okay, we don't like any of the foreign aid. We don't like any of the foreign entanglements. The Venezuela strikes. That's one that people are kind of like, well, I don't know how I feel about this. Are we killing drug dealers? Are we killing bad guys? Is it even legal? Is it part of something else? We just don't want to think about it. Young people are wondering, am I going to be able to afford a home? Young people are wondering, am I going to have a 50-year loan where I'm paying $1.5 million on a $500,000 house because I have no other choice if I want to get into the home ownership category? They're wondering, am I going to be living paycheck to paycheck in my 30s, in my 40s, in my 50s? A stat just came out today. 20% of boomers plan on having any inheritance for their children. Only 20%. Now, I bet if you would have asked boomers, some question along those lines, say 20, 30 years ago, I bet you at least 50% would have said, I'd like to leave something for my children. I'd like to have something for my children. And so it's kind of being spun like, wow, the boomers and, I don't mind wading into the generational warfare. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but, people like to go there and they say, look at these selfish boomers. And I'm looking at it differently. I'm saying, no, I think the economy failed them too. I think the economy failed the boomers too. You can point the finger and say, hey, they were the ones in charge when it happened, and that might be fair. But no, I don't think that's a selfish thing. I think everybody's feeling the pain of this economy right now. And when Trump comes out and says, oh, that's the greatest economy ever, I can go over numbers all day long and argue it might even be the worst economy ever. So it's all about perspective. But I think the haves and the have-nots is really separating right now. And I don't know if that's intentional from Trump. I don't know if anybody is even telling him this. I'm beginning to wonder if Charlie Kirk might have been the last voice of reason that was able to get into Trump's ear. It seems like maybe Susie Wiles or somebody else is trying to stop any other voices of reason from getting to Trump. Was Charlie the last person that could get to Trump's ear and say, hey, President Trump, the young people really don't like what we're doing in foreign policy right now. Hey, President Trump, the young people really do not feel satisfied with where the economy is at right now. Maybe you should change tactic or change communication on that. Well, Charlie obviously not with us anymore. So I'm wondering, is there any voice of reason getting to Trump's ear right now? Because it doesn't seem that way to me.
I think with a lot to unpack there, but at the end, I think Trump, just seeing how he operates, he's very stuck in his ways. He has an idea of what he wants. And I feel like anybody around him that disagrees, they get thrown under the bus. He's got that type of personality. So I think JD Vance is a Charlie Kirk type character where he has a lot of different ideas, but it's not really his role. He's the vice president. He's supposed to shadow the president, support the president. So he can't really say anything. I think everybody's afraid to say something because if you say something, he hates you. And with the whole, Israel topic and the generation, I think it goes hand in hand. The younger generation feels like they have no purpose. They're stuck online. The job market's weird. AI is taking over. The boomers, I'm sure they've had their issues too. But when it comes to like Israel specifically, I remember in 2019, I feel like I kind of got blacklisted for being early on this. And all I was saying was like, listen, I mean, you could ignore me and lie about me, but people are going to talk about this, which they clearly are now because, I saw a Glenn Beck post basically like, why do people talk about this and not all these other ones? And it's like, I could list all the reasons. It's not just foreign aid. It's like, hundreds of lawmakers are flying over there. Eric Adams goes over there and says, I served you. Like if that were the Congo, Zimbabwe, China, like it would be just as big of a deal. And I'm just going to play this clip real quick. I played a little bit at the beginning. This is Trump on a podcast years ago. This barely gets any coverage where he said that Israel used to literally own Congress and now they don't. And that basically they rightfully owned our Congress. Replace this with any other country and I would play this clip just as shocked. But this type of stuff happens with Israel like all the time. And I think because it seems like that's the center of policy in the GOP, like it's all they care about, people feel affected because they're like, dude, I'm struggling so much. Trump says it's a golden age in his ballroom. And then he goes on podcasts and says stuff like this.
Well, the biggest change I've seen in Congress is Israel literally owned Congress. You understand that 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And it was so powerful. It was so powerful. And today it's almost the opposite. You have between AOC and Omar and these people that hate Israel. They hate it with a passion. They're controlling Congress, and Israel is not a force in Congress anymore. It's just amazing. I've never seen such a change. And we're not talking about over a very long period of time. But I think you know exactly what I'm saying. They had such power. Israel had such power, and rightfully, over Congress.
They had power over our Congress is a crazy statement to make, but I'm sure I'm as moderate as they come, or at least I think I am. I'm not screaming. I'm not freaking out. Like this is not new to me. I've noticed this for like 7 years now, but it's like everywhere I turn, this is happening. You got the mayor of New York City in Israel being like, I served you. Like it's just everywhere. It's like, dude, tone it down a little bit and focus on, the fact that our country is ghetto and just like not affordable right now for a lot of people.
Well, it's like the craziest gaslighting that I think we're enduring right now on the foreign policy. And they say, well, gee, why do you talk about Israel all the time? And we're like, wait a second, why do you talk about Israel all the time? It's like, it's like the Spider-Man meme. It's like they're pointing at us saying, you're Spider-Man. We're like, wait a second, you're Spider-Man. What do you mean we? It's you.
Right.
And so it's like you laid out the case. I think most people see it. But yeah, it's like, what do you mean I can't talk about Israel? All of our Congress flies there. All of our Congress takes money from the Israeli lobby. All of our foreign policy seems to be dictated out of Tel Aviv. Netanyahu has been coming to Congress for 40 years telling us about weapons of mass destruction in the Middle East. We need to go after all of these leaders and do regime change. We've never found any weapons of mass destruction. Why do we still trust Netanyahu? These are totally fair observations. And, you mentioned, maybe you call yourself a moderate, whatever. I've been following your work for a long time. And, I think that there's something that's missing from the whole conversation with this split on the right. Because, yeah, we can look at the policies and say, okay, there's a hard line on, say, foreign policy, and we can look at that split on policy. But I really think what's going to happen at the end of the day is it's going to come down to people that can have a civil disagreement and still behave normally. I've been following your work for years. You say plenty of things I disagree with. So what? So what? So you think differently than me. What's wrong with that? And I see these people and they're freaking out over a political disagreement inside of the Trump support base. And I'm like, do you guys not have any friends? Like, have you never disagreed on something with a friend? Like, do men and women not fight? Do husband and wives not fight? I'm like, what is it? Since when are we trying to be in a cult here?
But I think that's the difference is there's some people that have good intentions, and I think there's some people that have other agendas. I think I'm moderate on the Israel topic. I mean, some other topics, maybe I'm more right wing, I'm definitely not left wing on most topics, but like on that, I just said, like, I don't agree with these speech laws. They said, you're an anti-Semite. Like, oh, they're giving $500 million to the GOP to get things done for Israel. You're an anti-Semite. Like, I just got called an anti-Semite a million times for 7 years. I even think, I mean, Tucker's like a wild guy, but I think he's even pretty moderate on the topic. I think his stances on it are understandable. So I think, whether me and you disagree on some things, I think we both identify. It's like I've always looked at you and been like, I think Owen's doing what he thinks is best. And I think he's a good guy. And I think he cares about America. And I'm pretty sure, I'm not going to name names or anything because I like to keep it as, above the belt as possible. But I feel like I know who everybody is just based on how they act. And there's a lot of people, they're not genuine people. Their agenda is not America first. They're not looking to make friends. They're basically looking to control and blacklist. And, while Charlie Kirk was alive, I made like a compilation because I wasn't aware of this because I wasn't really paying attention to him. But he was being smeared as an anti-Semite and Hamas with Megyn Kelly. And it's like Megyn Kelly is like as normie as they come. And I had no idea that all these people were like, they hate Megyn Kelly. It's almost like they want 100% control. So I disagree with Tucker. I disagree with other people, but I don't want to cancel him in the same way. But like I said, the reason is they're not doing it for the right reasons. They have completely ulterior motives. And when you figure out what their motives are, they just, want to cancel you harder. Like I can't believe they're trying to take Tucker off of the Turning Point stage when Charlie himself said that he wanted him to speak. Brandon Tatum's speaking there. I don't agree with Brandon, but I think he should speak because Charlie wanted him to. It's Charlie's event. I'm not trying to posthumously change his lineup. That's weird that they're doing that.
Well, and I don't know. There's some new drama. Apparently, they've kicked Tim Pool out of their big event coming up this year.
Well, they have a no beanie policy, so that's. I feel
it's the hat policy. Oh, okay.
I'm just kidding.
I was wondering. Well, it's like they want everything. It's like there's no moderate. They don't want any moderate. It's like either you're all in on this foreign policy or we consider you an extremist, right? It's like you're either with us or you're the terrorists, like George Bush used to say. And it's like we're just sitting here saying, hey, I'm just against foreign policy. I'm against foreign entanglements. And I think that the proof is in the pudding. We've been trying this. We've been trying the same foreign policy in the Middle East for my entire life. It's been a miserable failure. Why don't we ever address the miserable failures of our foreign policy? Look at the disaster that's taking place in Ukraine right now. This should be a much bigger issue. This is hundreds of billions of dollars. I don't know if Trump is going to secure a deal. They're talking about a peace deal today. I don't know if Trump can secure any of that value back for us, whether it's with rare earths or something else. But it's like this was an absolute foreign policy disaster. Why do we keep doing the same things and expecting different results? And if you just simply say, hey, it's failed, maybe we should go a different direction, that's when the extremists come for you. And, I remember because I never even really talked about Israel. Israel was never an issue for me. And I remember when people were coming after you for expressing some opinions on that. And I was just kind of like, it's not really my dog. I'm against the wars in the Middle East, but I'm not getting too much into the Israel issue. And I was called an Israel shill. I was like, that was the accusation of me is I was an Israel shill. And I'm just like, I just don't talk about it. Well, now I'm the opposite. I'm a Muslim extremist and all this stuff. And it's like, dude, I'm just against foreign policy. So it seems like the debate here is intentionally being, I don't know what to say, intentionally fog of war, intentionally muddying the water so that we can't actually get down to what we're talking about. We can't actually get down to what is it the issue, because I think most Americans would agree. They don't like our foreign policy. The poll numbers show it. It's a very low approval rating foreign policy. They don't like all the wars in the Middle East. I think these are populist issues. So the people that control policy in Washington, D.C. also happen to have the most money. They're able to kind of control the means of communication and make it seem like it's a popular thing. But when you talk to people on the left and the right, you realize, most people don't like our foreign policy in the Middle East. And I actually argue that the last two presidents, I think they stole the election for Joe Biden. So let's just cancel that. I think the last two presidents, I think Obama and Trump both won because they were against the wars in the Middle East. And if you go back and you watch the first round that each of them had in the debates, Barack Obama separated himself from Hillary Clinton standing against the wars in the Middle East. It was a very palpable moment in that campaign cycle that put Obama over the top. Same thing happened with Donald Trump. Now, Donald Trump was kind of a bull in a china shop, and a lot of people felt that they resonated with that. But Trump was also against the wars in the Middle East. Trump also called out the bad foreign policy in the Middle East. This is a populist issue that I argue has gotten the last two presidents elected, and I think it'll get the next president elected too.
I want to go back to the Tim thing with Turning Point, because I actually have kind of like an inside baseball story. It's not that deep, but I went to Turning Point like 3 or 4 years ago, maybe 5, I don't know, 2021 or something. And they invited me, or I asked them if I could go. I knew people that worked there, and they said, sure. Then somebody called me and said, you can't go because we saw your tweets and we saw you like criticizing Turning Point, and like it was over Israel and that sort of stuff. And then I kind of called back and I said, hey, I'm going to like go outside and protest because this is ridiculous. You're not going to let me in. And then they called me, and I'm not going to say who, but they were like, we talked to this guy and he said, you're cool, so you could come. But it was like, they almost didn't want me to go. And then they let me go. And it was fun. This last year, I went in April or whenever it was, or May, and I went totally different vibe. I was invited. Turning Point themselves wanted to interview me. They said, hey, we're going to interview Charlie, then Benny, and then you. And I was like, or like they were squeezing me between Benny and Charlie. And that's like Turning Point royalty. I was like, obviously, sorry, I don't know why it froze, but I'm just going to switch it up.
They give you that auto. They do that auto emoji every time you move your hands.
I got to figure out how to turn that off. It's been annoying me all year. But it's like, yeah, I was way more welcome. So that's kind of weird if Tim is not lying, which hard to tell. You know, the beanie kind of decides where he goes, not necessarily him. But
beanie's in control.
You know, if the beanie's in control.
Like, we need to see if there's any wires or microchips in there.
It's like Plankton and SpongeBob when he gets in that big machine. But yeah, you know, if he's telling the truth, then it's weird because Turning Point really was shifting in a different direction. Megyn Kelly and Tucker were on the stage talking about like Epstein, and you know, it's like now that you know he's gone, if they're really blacklisting people over Israel again, especially Tim Pool, who I would say has been more pro-Israel than critical completely, then that's a little weird that they're posthumously shifting it in a direction that Charlie clearly didn't want it to. And I have a question just to you, because I'm curious, like say like 2019, 2020. Here's how I remember it. Somebody showed me the speech laws that they were passing, and I read the anti-Semitism definition, and I thought it was creepy that an international definition was being passed into different states, an executive order, and Ron DeSantis with Randy Fine. So I just said this is unconstitutional. Pretty much got blacklisted, called far right, called anti-Semitic. And it took people years. Like, I mean, like Tucker, Candace, like nobody really talked about this stuff until like a year or two ago. And I'm just curious with you, like you said, you were, to be honest, I remember talking to you like right before COVID, and you were like super ahead of the curve on that for sure. But I don't really remember you talking or not talking about it. So I guess I didn't like judge you in that context. Like you said, people were calling you like an Israel shill and stuff because you wouldn't talk about it. Do you think you didn't talk about it because, you know, it just like wasn't in your wheelhouse, or did you kind of feel like a pressure? Because I had a lot of friends at like certain news stations, like, or like that worked at mainstream media type stuff. And they, you know, it's like they said they didn't want to talk about it, but I know there was like a unannounced pressure on them where it's basically like, I'd rather not look there, because if I look there, I'll probably agree with you. And if I agree with you, I'll probably get fired. I'm not saying that would happen to you, but like, do you think you really didn't know about it? Or do you think there was like this kind of unannounced pressure where you're like, I don't want to turn over that rock right now?
No, I would say I'm trying to remember the first time I covered that bill that you're referencing. And I can't remember if it was before or after COVID. But I do remember covering that bill extensively and getting into the dangerous elements of speech with it. But it was more just on the elements of speech. It wasn't really about foreign policy or the foreign lobbying or the Israeli lobby. It was more just about a speech issue. And I didn't hammer it too much because I don't think it passed. And I think it kind of got shut down pretty quick, if I recall. I'd have to go back and find it. But it's, you know, for me, it was like my instincts in the political media are to counter signal propaganda. And so that's kind of like one thing that I do. It's like I can identify propaganda and then I can counter signal it. So, you know, if I wasn't talking about a certain issue, or maybe I had a blind spot on a certain issue, it's just because there was no heavy propaganda coming out. It was not like the big play in the game. So maybe I just decided not to get into it. But now it's like it's the Super Bowl. Now it's like it's one of the big issues. So I'm constantly following it, constantly monitoring it. I think, but the reason why people would say I was Israeli shill is because I just didn't talk about it. It wasn't about anything I did or didn't do. It was just I was not covering it. It wasn't a big issue to me at the time. But like you said at the opening here, it's like even somebody like me that's not really my big issue. I didn't really have a dog in the fight. I probably, if you would have asked me in the first Trump administration, what do you think about Netanyahu? I probably would have said neutral, positive. I would have said, not much, maybe positive. Now I'd say I'm extremely negative. Now I think Netanyahu is maybe the most evil man on the planet. I would say from my view. So it's amazing how that shifted. But I think that's what happens when you're open-minded. I think that's what happens when you're not tethered to anything and you can be agile in your political thought process. These things are going to happen. Things are going to change over time.
Yeah, for sure. I guess like for me in 2019, and it depends what social media you were active on or seeing. It became almost like a Republican Civil War where like I actually got invited to the White House in 2018. I'm part Puerto Rican, just enough for them to invite me when there's empanadas and stuff. You know what I'm saying? But it was like some Hispanic Republican convention, and one of my friends invited me. And I was kind of like on the end where I wasn't doing anything, but they were like, "You're cool. We like this guy. He likes Trump. Like we can invite him places." And as soon as I saw the speech laws, like everything just came down on me. And I thought it was kind of weird because I was like, dude, it had nothing to do with Israel or Netanyahu. Like I wasn't even talking about Israel or Netanyahu. I was talking about American speech laws. And then it became this Nick versus Charlie. And that's when I first saw Nick, because I didn't even know who Nick was. And it was like, they were like, pick a side. You're either with Charlie and Ben Shapiro or Nick. And I'm like, this isn't high school for me. Like I could cover these topics on my own. But basically, I had someone who worked at one of the big media companies, and he said, yo, they're calling you far right and like extreme. I was like, why? They're like, because Nick Fuentes retweeted you. And I was like, I don't even know him. I've never met. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, they're canceling me behind the scenes because someone retweeted me. Like I get, especially at that time, like I was getting like millions of shares a month. Like my Facebook page has almost 1 billion views. I was like, I'm being penalized for retweets. So I think that's the interesting thing about what's happening now is it kind of was happening in 2019, but they did their best to basically blacklist everybody who knew. So they kind of bought themselves 4 more years. And now, like if you would ask me in 2020, like, why is that? Like, are you allowed to work at Daily Wire? I would have told someone no. I had a meeting with somebody, I'm not going to say who, in media, and they asked like why I thought I couldn't work at Daily Wire. I said, because of my foreign policy and my opposition to the speech laws. They'd never hire me. So then it's like, a lot of people figured this out last year, a year ago, and it's not a competition. I'm just curious because I know for sure, like it completely made it impossible for me to work with anybody else, which is fine. But it's like, I didn't think it was that serious of an issue, but clearly they swept it under the rug for so long. And then I think after October 7th and the response from Israel, that's kind of what like blew it out of the water, because then all eyes were on Israel and Palestine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was just curious because I like with you, I feel like you worked at InfoWars, and Alex, like you guys talk about a lot of wild stuff. So it's more like people at other media companies for sure. For me, I do feel like a lot of people, they kind of just didn't look there because they saw what was happening to people who looked there. They were basically being called like groypers and like, like if you don't agree with us, you're going in the corner. So that's why for me too, it's like this whole like Tucker having Nick on, it's like, I'm not mad at it at all, because all the people that tried to cancel me are the same ones that are trying to cancel Tucker. Like I know what they did behind the scenes. They'll never admit it, but they basically tried to, stop my career, which is fine. But, that's just the reality of it.
Well, let me address those two things, because I think you're hitting on one issue, which I call the social political culture, which kind of just becomes like a stress test for an individual to decide, okay, where do I land in the social political structure? But as far as October 7th kind of heightening awareness, let's say with Israel or bad foreign policy or foreign influence, for me, I'm also a very, I mean, you could say pragmatic, but I'm a very like, I want to have a strategy to win type of a thing. It's like, all right, what is my agenda? What do I consider a victory? And then what is my strategy? So to me, the big issue was we have to defeat the radical left. That was kind of where I was coming from to let's say 2020 to 2024 was we have to defeat the radical left. For the first Trump administration, it was, okay, we have to defeat the neocon right. We did it. All right, we beat the neocon right. We got Trump in. We beat the mainstream media, all the lies. We got Trump in. So it's like, all right, we're going to beat the mainstream media. We're going to beat the neocon right. All right, we did that first Trump administration. Then 2020, we got to beat the radical left, all their different radical leftist agendas. Okay, so it's like that was the agenda. That was the mission. Okay, mission accomplished. We got Trump elected. And so now it's like, all right, where are we at? What are our goals here? Well, with President Trump, I think, for me, I thought this is what we wanted. We wanted to drain the swamp. What does that mean? We want deep state arrest. We want massive government reform. I actually want to cut taxes. I don't want to hear about cutting taxes. I mean, I want taxes cut, like gone. I don't even want any taxes, as little tax as possible. So like there's actual things that we can sit here and say, okay, is this manifesting? And in my view, it's not. In my view, a lot of these things aren't. Now, I can point to the border being secure. I can point to, other issues that we might be getting, maybe what we want from Trump on, like deportations and such. But okay, now it's like, what is the big issue? And so I get back to what you're talking about with the social political culture right now. And it's kind of like a stress test. It's like, all right, right now, who's attacking me? Who's attacking me and why? Right. And it's mostly people on the right. And in fact, I would argue I've never had more hatred and vitriol directed at me than I'm getting from the neocon right at this moment, even from the left. I've never had the hatred and vitriol that I'm receiving now, all coming from the neocon right, which is kind of ironic. But I'm saying, okay, so this is interesting. So who are these people attacking me? What do they all have in common? And I'm doing research. I'm like, all right, what is this all about? And it's funny, they'll say, oh, I'm not MAGA or I'm not a real Trump supporter. And I'm like, bro, I've been a season ticket holder since 2015, man. Okay. I've been standing in the bleachers for all of the wins, all of the losses, all of the good weather games, all of the bad weather games. Like, I'm season ticket holder for life. You're the guy that just showed up telling me to sit down and shut up. I've been sitting in the seat for 10 years. You just showed up a year ago and you're asking me to sit down and shut up. So what's up with that? Well, they just weren't around. They just weren't following politics. They had no idea what was going on in the first Trump administration or what led to it. They had no idea what was going on in 2020. They weren't there out in the streets protesting against the lockdowns. They weren't there on January 6th calling out the stolen election. But now they want to dictate who's MAGA and who's not. And so, okay, what do they all have in common? Well, they all share a similar foreign policy agenda. They all share a similar loyalty to a foreign country. And so it's like, okay, if I'm not going to get, if the Trump administration is not going to do what it wants me to do or what I want it to do, fine. I got Trump in. I don't regret voting for Trump. I don't regret supporting Trump, but he's in now. He's going to decide what he wants to do. He's already told his loyalists from 2016 that he doesn't want us anymore because we want the Epstein files. So fine. All right. Hey, Trump is in charge of his legacy. We got him in. He's in for 4 years. The deal is done. What happens, happens. Why are all these people attacking me on a foreign policy agenda? And so that's when it's like, okay, everything changes. So now I see, all right, we had to defeat the neocon right in 2016. We had to defeat the radical left in 2020. And now it's like 2016 all over again. It's like, we have to defeat the neocon right again. And now it's the easy strategy, and it's a winning strategy because it's working, is you point out the fact that they're loyal to a foreign country. You point out the fact that they're acting on behalf of a foreign country. And this is why they're panicked, because it's their Achilles heel. They can't deny it. All they can do is call you names. And so this is their Achilles heel. So it's not going to stop. And I think for people that are acting pragmatically to try to save the country and counter signaling propaganda, they're saying, look, you guys are loyal to a foreign country. You're acting on behalf of a foreign country. You can't deny it. All you can do is call me a name, and that's not going to shut me up.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I point to, because everyone's obviously talking about Charlie's assassination, which understandable. I mean, I get why people are talking about it, but like, this is what I try to separate because it's kind of two different things. I mean, obviously there could be a connection, but like in the 2 months prior to Charlie getting killed, he was expressing, because so many people say like, oh, Charlie was awesome, but you're an anti-Semite, like, oh, and you're an anti-Semite, but Charlie wasn't. It's like, but Charlie was also being called an anti-Semite. Charlie was also panicked because he was being called Hamas and an enemy, and he was getting text messages, and he said that publicly. Like, it's public statements that you can look. So what I tell everybody is like, Charlie was super pro-Israel his entire career. He was loyal. He defended them, even allegedly when he didn't even believe it, according to one guy who was coaching him on a Zoom call. Like, Charlie did the most. If you ask me 5 people in America that aren't Jewish that did the most for Israel, like, Charlie might be number 1. Yet they still called him an anti-Semite. And I'm not saying everybody was, but that faction was still trying to get him canceled because he had Tucker Carlson on a stage. He let Dave Smith debate. That just shows you it's like 99% control is not enough. 95% control is not enough. They want 100%. So it's like, if Charlie couldn't please these people, how am I going to please these people? Because I'm not Charlie Kirk. You know what I'm saying? I'm not taking Zoom calls and saying things I don't believe. Like, that's not what I'm doing. So I guess like I'm not, obviously I'm never happy that there's division, but it's like, I feel like I was covertly attacked in this way in 2019. But they did it behind the scenes because I feel like they knew if it ever bubbled up above the scenes that people would agree with me. And now that the cat's out of the bag, it's like everybody's kind of seeing how it works. And it's an unavoidable issue because, like, say Tucker Carlson, there's things that I disagree with him on, but I think he was the best person at Fox. I think he's one of the most interesting people on our side. And just like Marjorie Taylor Greene, Thomas Massey, Rand Paul, these are not the problems. Like, I want more of all of them rather than the rest of Congress. Like, they're not the issues. I don't pick on people that are net positives. So if these people are like, look how desperate they are to call Tucker the most dangerous anti-Semite in America. Like, they're putting a target on his back. And same with Megyn Kelly. Like, I always say this, and I want to be clear because I'm very careful with my words. They kill Hamas in Palestine, right? They say they're Hamas, we kill them. That journalist is Hamas. Even if they're not, they're just around Hamas. They kill them. So if they're calling Megyn Kelly Hamas constantly, they're putting a target on her the same way Republicans say that when the left calls you a Nazi, they're doing the same thing. So it's like that the rhetoric is extreme. These people are insane. I guess, like, for me, I wouldn't even say I'm falling back, but I'm just observing how everybody's acting, because for me, it's like I've noticed this for a long time, and now they're just making it so obvious. So I guess, I thought Trump was phony in 2020. I thought he was kind of corrupt, working for pharmaceuticals. I had high hopes, I guess you could say, for this administration. Now, I'm not really pumped off what he's doing, but I guess that's my question for you too. I know I said a lot there, but like, what happens to, and you are even more original MAGA than me. Like, you voted for Trump in 2016. You were early on it. Like, where do the people go from here? That it's clear that if you're too outspoken, like, maybe Trump will turn on you the same way he's turning on Marjorie Taylor Greene. Like, what do people do with this? And do you think more people are going to counter Trump, or just kind of like stay silent because they don't want to get called a traitor?
I think the lines have been drawn, and I think we're kind of already seeing where people are going to end up with those lines. They may shift and curve a little bit as we get to the midterms, but I think the lines have pretty much been drawn. I think too, and I'm sure you see this whole phrase woke right getting tossed around a bunch, and of course the entire intention of the woke right label has been mirrored, and it's only stuck to the people that were trying to use it against their opposition. What you just said, the logical conclusion that you just reached, is so important for people to understand what's going on in the right wing, because this is what the left did for years. They would label you a Nazi, and that would give them clearance to go out and do physical harm to you. That's what they did. We all covered it. Everybody on the right agreed. We all called it out. We all called it woke. And now the exact same thing is happening in right-wing politics. And this is what frustrates me. It's like, I don't mind having a disagreement. I actually like it. I like disagreeing. I like debating. I like hearing different ideas. Maybe somebody's ideas are better than mine. I'm going to stand strong for my values and my ideas. I'm willing to hear your values and your ideas. But at a certain level, there's things that are just true, right? There's things that are just observably true. They're not opinion. And what you just said is just true. I don't see any opinion on what you just expressed. This is now what the radical right is doing. They're doing exactly what the radical left did. Oh, I don't like an opinion you have. Oh, I don't like a political position you have. So I'm going to label you a Nazi. I'm going to label you a bigot. I'm going to label you a racist, whatever it is. And then that gives me clearance to act violently against you. That gives me clearance to incite violence against you and justify violence against you. This was the woke left. We called them the woke left for 4 years. Now it's the woke right. They're doing the same thing. Oh, I don't like what you said about this foreign policy, or I don't like what you said about this individual. I'm going to call you a Nazi. I'm going to call you an anti-Semite. I'm going to call you these names, or Hamas. And what is that? That's the psychological clearance that, hey, it's okay to commit violence against you. I called you a Nazi. I called you Hamas. That's the green light. If somebody commits violence against you, somebody kills you, that's good because you're a Nazi and you're Hamas, and so we support killing these people. It's more dangerous than anything I ever said, anything I ever saw from the left, which is crazy. It's crazy that's where we would be at today. But that's how I see it. I think that you see it too. I think it's a neutrally observable fact. I don't see any opinion. I think that that's exactly what's happening. And if you're denying it, you're just not paying attention.
Yeah, and I guess I don't see the two sides coming together because, I have a lot of people that I've disagreed with on maybe like Israel. And I feel like in the last year or so, just objectively, because I get that there's other people that are anti-Israel that are acting crazy on Twitter as well. But it's like I'm not acting that way. But a lot of people that I know are kind of just acting like really crazy. And it's like I don't even know really what to say to them anymore. Like I'm not a type of person that's going to take anything personal or, over politics, not be someone's friend. But I'm just like looking at the things that they're saying. And it's like, if you think like Tucker's a Nazi, then like, how can I even, what do I even say to you? Because like, I don't see it that way. And I feel like I actually personally believe that using the words racist, sexist, anti-vaxxer, xenophobic, like, I don't think anyone should use those words because basically like, say we were debating, right? And I just said, you're a sexist. It's like really what that means is I think I'm better than you. You're a bad person, but I don't have to explain it because I probably don't know how to explain it. Like if I can't break down how you actually treat women bad or black people bad, and I just use the word racist and sexist, like 10 times out of 10, the person using that word is like an idiot and they just can't articulate why you're wrong. Like there's things like races and religions are different. There's different patterns. It's okay to recognize patterns. It's okay to understand that India is not China and China is not Nigeria and Nigeria is not America. So anybody that uses like overt labels all the time, I just instinctually don't trust because I feel like they're spurging out and having like an emotional fit. You know what I'm saying? And it's like,
it's like the white flag. It's like the white flag in a debate. It's like, I can't beat you at the debate, so I'm just going to start name calling, right? I mean, I think that's kind of what you're describing here. And, we were talking a couple months ago about the Mamdani thing. And I predicted Mamdani was going to win the Democrat primaries. And then we were posting at each other and we made a friendly wager that Mamdani would win the mayor's race, and he won. And so I'm looking at this now and I'm seeing the people on the right and they're like, oh my gosh, look at these so-called conservatives celebrating Mamdani's win. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, look, I'm not in New York City. I'm not celebrating Mamdani's win. I'm just doing political coverage. I just thought that he was going to win. But at the same time, yeah, I do see that there are probably people that voted for Trump that are maybe excited about the Mamdani win because they're feeling disenfranchised or whatever. But I see these voices on the right and they're saying, my God, why would they celebrate Mamdani? How can this be? And I'm sitting here, I'm saying, well, wait a second. What is it that you expect them to do exactly? You were the ones that kicked them out of the so-called movement. It's like you guys are the ones that said, we don't want you anymore. There's no room for you here anymore. You're the bad guys. Like you literally pushed them out and said, we don't want you. So they ended up somewhere else. And you're like, oh my gosh, why are you over there? It's like, what are you talking about? You guys are the ones that did it. It's like if a football team traded a quarterback, they said, we don't want this quarterback anymore. We're going to trade him. So they trade a quarterback. He ends up on another team. He throws 3 touchdowns in the game. And they're like, why are you throwing touchdowns for the other team? And he's like, what are you talking about? You traded me. You didn't want me anymore.
And like you said, too, I mean, there are a few people that like actually like Mamdani that are more right wing, but I would say 99% of them, like probably you, Tucker, they're not celebrating Mamdani. They're analyzing it. So like when Tucker sent out a letter, there's this guy on YouTube. I won't name him, but he's usually really accurate. But with this topic, he's not. And he's like, Tucker was celebrating the win in an email. So I went and looked at the email because I wanted to figure out which one it was. He wasn't celebrating it. He was just explaining why. Same with Venezuela. He didn't say he was pro-Venezuela. He didn't say he liked them. He's against regime change, but he basically just said he's conservative in his values. And they're like, oh, he supports the leader of Venezuela. No, that's accurate reporting. But what they try to do is they try to dehumanize people that they want a regime change and humanize terrorists that they're regime changing with. In Syria, Bashar al-Assad, he's a butcher. He's killing his own people. They replaced him with a former al-Qaeda leader, and now he's spraying perfume at the White House. It's like, it's such an obvious con where they're just mad that, and same with a martyr maid, Daryl Cooper. They're just mad at anybody who has nuance with any topic and can speak about it articulately and honestly. I'm not saying he's right about everything, but that's the reality of the situation. And I want to bring this up real quick because just for my audience, we did have a friendly wager. Owen correctly predicted that Mamdani would win. And I said, I don't think he's going to win because I think the donors are going to step in and the establishment's going to kick him out. The donors did step in, like Bill Ackman and such. It wasn't enough, but I want to show people my miscalculation and take accountability. I didn't realize that Mamdani not only had small hats on his side, but he had the big hat too. That huge hat, it's not a small, like the small hats are one thing, but he's got the large hats too. So that was my miscalculation. I had no idea that he was so popular.
This is for full transparency. All right, for full transparency. Hold on.
I had no idea he was so popular among the hats. I thought he was really the candidate that they didn't want. My God.
Full transparency for me to.
Dude, you were in on. That's how you knew that. That's how you knew
things about Mamdani's victory.
Okay,
right
yeah. Please tell me what happened because you're the top analyst on this topic. Thank you.
Well, look, the hat is a funny gag that I did, but I actually really like the hat. I think it looks pretty good. Schmeatrel hat is a very powerful. I highly recommend it. Look, I think that there's a major underestimation. All right, we'll get rid of the Schmeatrel hat for now. Point proven.
Okay.
I think that there's a major underestimation happening on the right, and they're kind of like stuck in this honeymoon phase. They're kind of stuck in like, I don't know. It's like the loser in high school finally gets to sit at the popular kids table or something, and so they're kind of just riding high, and they don't realize that the table that they left is really upset right now and feeling like they're being betrayed or something. I don't know. I guess that's an analogy or a metaphor I would use. I think there's a major underestimation of how disenfranchised right-wingers are right now, especially men under 40. All of the polls show it. And I've reached a conclusion that kind of the right-wing establishment, the people that are surrounding Trump, I've reached a conclusion that they have no social lives, They're all living in this political bubble where they all just think and breathe the exact same things. That's why I said, was Charlie Kirk kind of the last voice of reason in Trump's ear? Because it doesn't seem that he's getting it. Everywhere I go, and I've got friends on the left, I've got friends on the right, all different walks of life, whatever, rich, paycheck to paycheck. Like I just talk to normal people and they all are kind of saying the same thing. And so I'm sitting here and I'm like, yeah, there's a major force happening right now that's going to get Mamdani elected. I can see it. I can feel it. It's palpable. I can feel the tides changing on the right. If you think that Trump going against Marjorie Taylor Greene is hurting Marjorie Taylor Greene, you just don't understand what's going on. And, I think that there's another important factor for people to weigh into, which is a lot of these personalities online. And I know this has never been you. This is why you've been able to be independent for your career. But a lot of these people have basically built an entire online persona off of Trump. They've even built a business off of Trump. They changed their name to MAGA Ben or something like that. So it's like their entire business model, personality is based off of Trump. So of course they're not going to be critical. They can't. Maybe the best way to give an example of this, and I like Scott Jennings on CNN. I think he's good on that panel. I probably agree with maybe 80-90% of the things he says. But guess what? He's selling a book right now all about Trump. Right. Trump is on the cover. The book's about Trump. Do you think Scott Jennings is going to say anything negative about Trump when he's trying to sell you a book about how great Trump is? Of course not. It's a business model. So I think that there's a major issue on the right where people just can't be honest. They can't be honest about what's really going on. They don't want to be honest about what's really going on. They're not even aware of what's really going on. But I just talk to normal people all the time, and they're they're talking like, hey, I don't like our foreign policy. Hey, I think Trump is going wrong on this issue. Hey, why is he attacking Marjorie Taylor Greene? I like her. Hey, I really like Tucker Carlson. I can't believe the attack. So it's just like, I just don't think anybody's telling Trump this stuff. I don't think anybody's getting this information to Trump. I don't know if he would act differently if he was getting it.
Yeah.
But it seems like there's a massive blind spot in the right wing right now.
Well, 95% of Republican jobs, you either have to shut up about the Israel stuff or you have to shut up about Trump, or really both. Like Trump is the top dog. He's like the golden calf. So none of them can be there unless they suck up to Trump. And I think I watched a Dana White interview with Andrew Schultz's podcast recently, and Dana's been friends with Trump for years, which is totally fine. But like the whole time he's saying how great Trump is doing, and Andrew Schultz is kind of hinting that like nobody kind of likes him anymore, but like doesn't want to say it, you know? So there's that. And I want to bring up kind of what you're saying in Washington too, because like you said, you talk to regular people. I talk to, I know people that aren't in politics, but I also know people that kind of are in politics, like on lower levels. And what I'm seeing, just like observing and even following certain people on Twitter and stuff, is that's their whole vibe. Like the Republicans who live in Washington and like work in Washington, their vibe is literally Mean Girls. Like they're throwing these parties like the Mean Kids Club and stuff, where like the guy, they're bringing the hot chicks out. And it's like, that's their whole aesthetic right now, is like, we're the mean kids, we won, but they're totally oblivious. So it's like everybody either works for Trump, works with Trump, or is in Washington, which is this little bubble where they're like, ha, 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 that's like the DHS. They're always tweeting like, ha, 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 we're deporting. And it's like, that doesn't, what's the point of that? Just do it. And then like, every now and then put out a funny tweet, but like they got the brattiest, most obnoxious people running social media. I know you said you got to leave in a few, and I don't mind putting you on the spot with this because you could just disagree, but you said you don't agree with everything I say. I'm just curious for the sake of debate, what don't you agree with that I said?
It was nothing specifically. I just know, following your work over the years, I've just been like, oh, I don't necessarily agree with that. Some things I'll give you credit that you were way ahead of the curve on, like calling Trump Grandpa Moderna or Grandpa Pfizer.
I did make up Grandpa Moderna. That's my nickname. Trump, don't assassinate me, Trump. It wasn't me. I mean, it was me, but yeah, go ahead.
You went real heavy on that stuff first, and I was kind of like, I'm not ready. I was kind of giving Trump more benefit of the doubt, thinking he was in a bad position. He had to make decisions. But now he's still, Burla was just at the White House. He's taking care of big pharma left and right. So you like, that was something originally where I was like, I don't know if that's fair. I think he made a tough decision in a bad circumstance. Now I'd say, Grandpa Pharma was a correct analysis that you were ahead of the curve on. So it's not like there's any like single thing where I'm like, oh my gosh, he's so wrong.
I know what you're wrong. I know what you're wrong about. Remember years ago, you said you think you could beat me one-on-one in basketball. I was like, dude, that's a really bad.
You don't know the power. Okay. You don't understand. I'm
no hats, dude. 7. No hats allowed. This is
7 or 8 or 9 in this hat. I don't even know. I'm sounding like Dennis Rodman with this.
This isn't the Tim Pool Big Beanie Invitational. No hats allowed when you play me, because it might get in my eye.
What are we gonna do? How are we? We got to make this happen sometime. Maybe we go to First Form or something.
Yeah, we could do that. Yeah. Do you know Andy?
No, I don't, but that's my hometown in St. Louis. I know people that work for him. I could probably get it done.
Yeah, he has a court now. I know him well. So
you do? I know. I saw you. You did us a video in his gym one time.
Yeah, when I go there, like I try to go early, like because I've been on his podcast twice. He's got a sick, clean gym that nobody's playing in, a full basketball court. So I brought my friend last time, and I was trying to do trick shots. Like I'm an Instagram influencer, so yeah, it's like a playground in there. But
I want to get up and see that gym sometime. Maybe I'll do it this Christmas. I'm thinking about going back home to St. Louis for Christmas. Maybe I'll check it out then.
I'll ask him if he can host a one-on-one invitational.
Let's do it.
A no hat invitational. Game to 20.
I'm gonna ban my hat.
Game to 21. We got to test our cardio.
It's very bigoted for you to tell me I can't wear my hat. Okay, I will have you know that I'm gonna be contacting the ADL. And we're gonna have to deal with this. All right, you may have to have an apology tour, visit a Holocaust museum. You may even have to go touch the wall if you disrespect my hat again.
Dude, I'll go wherever Ben Shapiro tells me to. So I don't want to. I'm trying to stay out of that lawsuit.
Now you understand who's in charge. All right.
All right. Well, we'll make it happen. Any last words? I know you got to take off soon. Thanks for coming on. We could chat whenever, and let people know where they can find you. And now you're for those who don't know, Owen's independent now doing his thing, and let them know.
Best place is just to follow me on X at Owen Schroyer 1776. Try to keep you posted on everything I'm doing there. All my links to my shows are pinned right there on my page. YouTube, Rumble, the audio archives on your favorite place to listen to podcasts. My show, The Owen Report, runs 3 to 6 p.m. weekdays. I just consider myself your political play-by-play. I just call it as I see it on the field. And I would just say this in conclusion for people that want to know what's coming next. The radical young generational left is taking over the party. They've decided they're going to make their move ahead of the midterms. I expect their attacks against the Democrat leadership to get more directional. I expect the platform to become a lot more anti-Israel. I think they're going to weigh into that. And I think they're going to have a victory in the midterms because of it. And then the Republican Party is going to have to decide what they want to do. This is where I see things going. And the Republicans can either decide to embrace the younger generational right, or they can reject it and accept at least 2 election cycles of losses. But I hope that's not how it goes.
I 100% agree. And I feel like if Trump doesn't course correct even a little bit, they're going to just get smoked by like the Mamdanis of the future. I 100% agree, because they can't just reject, like, they don't realize how many people under 30 just completely disagree with what they're doing. And they like the Thomas Massey, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Tucker Carlson side more. Thanks for being here, Owen. Thanks everybody for watching. It's been Dreamer Podcast. We'll connect soon, and we'll play ball, and we'll film it for sure if we